Hey, I'm Sophia. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories take their time, and they are told the way I'd tell a friend late at night. I really hope you enjoy them. This story has one update on it and my own opinion at the end. Comment and tell me if you agree. Let's begin. When my parents tried to control my life, I packed my bags and created my own future. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely pull the zipper closed on my suitcase. My dad was standing in front of the front door like a bouncer, arms folded over his chest, his jaw clenched so tight a vein pulsed in his temple. Mum was behind him, clutching a tea towel like it was a rosary, eyes red, breathing in these short, panicked bursts. "You walk out that door, Hannah," Dad said, voice low and terrifyingly calm, "and you are no longer our responsibility. Do you understand? No more money. No more car. Don't come crawling back when it all falls apart." The strap of my suitcase dug into my palm. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, feel the sweat gathering under my collar. My backpack was already on, cutting into my shoulders. I had one duffel, one suitcase, a laptop, and a savings account that looked like a bad joke next to Sydney rent. And still, underneath the fear, there was this tiny, stubborn flicker of something else. Relief. "I'm not your responsibility," I managed, though my throat felt like sandpaper. "I'm your daughter. Or, at least I used to be." Mum let out this wounded sound, half sob, half gasp. "How can you say that? After everything we've done for you?" I stared at them, at the house I'd grown up in, at the family photos on the hallway wall where my smile got tighter with every year. My fingers tightened around the suitcase handle. "Exactly," I said. "After everything you've done for me." It was a Sunday afternoon, about 3 weeks after my 25th birthday, and I had finally reached the point where staying felt more dangerous than leaving. For context, I grew up in a loud, opinionated, very traditional family. I'm the eldest daughter of immigrant parents who came here with almost nothing and built a life through sheer grind and stubbornness. My dad runs a small construction business. My mum works reception at a medical clinic. They're proud of how far they've come and completely terrified of anything that looks unstable or unfamiliar. Unfortunately, my entire personality reads as unstable and unfamiliar to them. They had a script for my life before I could spell my own name. Study hard, get into medicine or law, marry a nice boy from a good family, buy a house in the suburbs 20 minutes from theirs, have kids, invite them over every Sunday for lunch. They weren't subtle about it. Mum would flip through school photos and sigh, "My future doctor," in that half-joking tone that isn't actually a joke. The problem is I never wanted any of that. I wanted to design things. I was the kid who spent hours rearranging my bedroom, sketching fake magazine covers, editing videos for school projects like they were cinematic trailers. In high school, I fell in love with UX and branding and all the ways design could make things easier or more beautiful. I'd read case studies for fun. When it came time for university preferences, I put down a mix, some serious degrees to keep them calm, but my real first choice was a Bachelor of Design Communication at a uni in the city. I'd researched the course, stalked alumni on LinkedIn, and fallen asleep more than once fantasizing about walking into a studio with my own laptop and a coffee, working on campaigns. When my offer email came in, I squealed so loudly my neighbor's dog started barking. I was in. First round offer, my dream course. I ran into the kitchen, phone in hand, practically vibrating. "Mum, Dad, I got into design. At Central Uni. It's the one I showed you with the portfolio stream and..." Dad didn't even look up from the newspaper. "And medicine?" I swallowed. "I didn't apply for medicine. Remember? We talked about this." Mum went very still. "You put down nursing, though?" "I put down psychology as my second choice," I said. "But I got my first." Design. "It's a really reputable program and..." Dad folded the paper with this precise, controlled movement that always meant bad news. "No." It was like a switch flipped. I tried explaining. I showed them the course structure, salaries, demand for designers in tech. I pulled up articles about UX being the future. They didn't hear any of it. Art is a hobby, Dad said. You can do design in your free time. You will not waste your ATER on drawing pretty pictures. Mum chimed in with her usual chorus. Do something stable first. Something real. Once you are a nurse or a doctor, you can do whatever you like. We fought. For days. I cried. I begged. They threatened to withhold financial support, to tell everyone you threw your life away. Eventually, the compromise was this. I enrolled in a double degree, business and design, at a different uni. In their heads, business was the real degree and design was the cute accessory. From day one, they treated my business units as serious study and my design units as a phase. If I had a late night at the studio, Mum would sigh and say, "You're staying up this late for colors and fonts?" If I got a distinction in marketing, Dad would call his brother overseas to brag. When I got a high distinction in studio practice, he said, "That's good, but those subjects are easy, right?" The control went beyond academics. They tracked my location for safety. Curfew was still a thing at 21. They wanted passwords to everything because we're paying for your phone. When I refused, Dad threatened to cut off my plan. Any attempt to push back was disrespect or Western brainwashing. At 23, halfway through my degrees, I landed an internship at a small agency in the city. It was unpaid at first, which my parents hated, but within 3 months it turned into a part-time paid role. For the first time, someone outside my family looked at my work and said, "You're good at this," and backed it up with money. That's when the real tension started. The agency wanted me more hours. I wanted to drop some business units, shift to part-time study. My parents said absolutely not. They called my boss behind my back and told him not to encourage me to neglect real classes. I found out when he pulled me aside and said gently, "You've got a lot of pressure at home, huh?" Around the same time, my parents started talking more bluntly about marriage. Our community is small and nosy. Word had gotten around that I was always busy and still not engaged. Mum would come home from gatherings and drop comments like, "Your friend Layla just got engaged. She's younger than you, you know." My breaking point came in the form of an email I wasn't supposed to see. I was using Dad's desktop to print something when a new message popped up on the corner of the screen. The subject line had my full name. The preview showed my uni's logo. I shouldn't have looked, but my stomach dropped in that way that told me I already knew I had to. It was from the university, confirming receipt of my request to withdraw from the design major effective next semester. I almost threw up. My hand started shaking so hard I could barely move the mouse. I opened the thread. Attached was a scanned form with my name, student number, and a shaky version of my signature that wasn't mine. I heard Mum in the hallway, humming, carrying laundry. My vision tunneled. "Mum," I called, voice way too high. "What is this?" She froze when she saw the screen. "Hannah, you shouldn't go through your father's emails." "What is this?" I repeated, pointing at the withdrawal form. "Why are they thanking me for dropping design?" Dad arrived, drawn by the yelling. His eyes flicked from the screen to my face. "We talked about this," he said. "Business is enough. You're exhausted. You don't need the extra stress." "You forged my signature?" My voice cracked on the last word. "It's for your own good," Mum insisted. "You can still do design later as a diploma or something. This way you finish something respectable first." I don't remember exactly what I said after that. I remember screaming. I remember Dad shouting that in his country, children respected their elders and didn't question decisions made for them. I remember Mum bursting into tears and saying she wished she'd never let me go to university if I was going to throw it in their faces. Within a week, I had reversed the withdrawal with the help of a sympathetic faculty admin and changed every single password I had. I also opened a separate bank account they couldn't see. I started saving every spare dollar for my part-time job. I said yes to freelance gigs that had me designing menus for tiny cafes at 2 a.m. I stopped telling my parents what I was working on. The next year was war. Cold and quiet sometimes, loud and brutal others. Every time I left the house with my laptop, Mum would ask, "Is this for real work or your little projects?" Dad would scoff at my paychecks, saying, You call this money? Wait until you see a real salary. Then, on my 25th birthday, they sat me down at the kitchen table after cake like it was an intervention. Dad cleared his throat. Your aunt has a son. He is a doctor. Very good boy. Good family. They are interested. My fork clinked against my plate. Interested in what? Mum smiled in this brittle, hopeful way. Marriage, Habibti. He's seen your photo. He knows you're studying. You can meet him, no pressure, but we think. No, I said. Mum flinched like I'd slapped her. At least meet him. No, irapa. I don't want an arranged marriage. I don't want to marry a doctor I've never met because you think it will fix my life. I don't want the life you want for me. Dad's voice turned icy. Be careful how you speak. I pushed my chair back. I'm always careful. I've spent my whole life being careful. I'm done. That night I stayed at a friend's place after missing the last train, even though there were still trains. Lying on her lumpy couch, staring at the crack at her ceiling, I realized I was already living half a life just to keep them from exploding. 2 weeks later, I signed a lease on a tiny room in a share house with 3 other people I barely knew. It smelled like old carpet and incense, and the shower tiles were peeling, but when I held the keys, my hands shook with something that felt like terror and freedom mixed. That's how we ended up at the front door, my suitcase packed, my dad blocking my path like a final boss. He tried one last time. Where will you even go? With what money? With what plan? You think your friends will take care of you? When you have a problem, it's always us you call. I swallowed. I have a job. I have savings. Not much, but more than 0. I'll make it work. I would rather struggle on my own than be comfortable and controlled. You're being dramatic, Mum whispered. Tears streamed down her face. We're your parents. Everything we do for you. That's the problem, I said quietly. You do things to me and call it love. Dad stepped aside. Just a fraction of an inch, but it was enough. Go then, he said. If you're so sure you know better than everyone. Let's see how long it takes before you come back. I walked out before I could lose my nerve. Down the familiar path, past the rosebush Mum always pruned on Sundays, past the letterbox Dad had painted himself. My chest hurt. My eyes burned. My feet carried me to the bus stop anyway. The first few months on my own were brutal. My room was barely big enough for a bed and a desk. I learned exactly how many meals you can stretch from a bag of rice and a jar of peanut butter. I cried on the train more than once, quietly, pretending it was just allergies. But I also woke up for the first time and thought, I decide what I do today. No one demanded to see my timetable. No one texted me every 30 minutes asking when I'd be home. I could say yes to extra shifts at the agency. I could work late on a client project without a screaming match. I finished my degrees, design and business. My final capstone project won an internal award. The agency I interned with referred me to a bigger studio. I landed a full-time role as a junior brand strategist. The salary was modest, but it was mine. I bought myself a cheap, second-hand couch and cried on it out of sheer pride. Contact with my parents shrank to occasional texts and stiff Sunday lunches where they pretended I'd just moved out like a normal 20-something and hadn't detonated their expectations. They never outright apologized. They also never admitted they were wrong. At one of those lunches, Mum casually mentioned she'd told the aunt with the doctor's son that I was too busy with work now to think about marriage. She said it like a complaint, but I heard the unspoken part. She'd stopped trying to fix me. That felt like a kind of victory. Not a fireworks kind. More like finally exhaling after holding your breath underwater for too long. If the story ended there, you could put a neat bow on it. Girl escapes controlling parents, builds her own life, proves she can survive. Not perfect, not healed, but okay. So let's call that the end of part 1. If we paused the movie here, I'd be throwing popcorn at the screen while yelling, "Good for her." This is the classic, painfully relatable, my parents think they own my life because they sacrificed a lot story, and Opie handled it with more grace and planning than a lot of people twice her age. Her parents are not cartoon villains. They're recognizable, especially in immigrant or traditional households. They did work incredibly hard. They do love her. But they also crossed every boundary in the book, tracking her, forging her signature to drop her major, trying to line up a husband like she was a package to be delivered. That "it's for your own good" line? That's the soundtrack of 1,000 quietly traumatized adult children. Opie's decision to quietly open a separate bank account, save, and get her ducks in a row before walking out is smart survival, not betrayal. People love to say just move out like that's easy. She actually did it on a shoestring in an expensive city while finishing a double degree and working. That's grit. Dad using the "in my country" speech and Mom weaponizing guilt tears are standard issue, unfortunately. But the forged withdrawal form is where they blow past strict into controlling and abusive. That's not just overprotective. That's identity theft for the sake of control. They're lucky she didn't report it. As for Opie, she's not perfect. She hides things, she explodes, she leaves suddenly, but that's called being human in a pressure cooker. Overall, Part 1 Hannah is a legend in progress, and her parents are a walking cautionary tale about confusing ownership with love. Now, on to the update, because we all know controlling parents rarely stay quietly in the background forever. Update. Hi again. A few people asked what happened after I created my own future, and whether my parents ever really changed. Short answer, kind of. Long answer, buckle up. About a year after I moved out, I got an email that made everything feel weirdly full circle. It was from my old uni. My capstone project had been shortlisted for an industry award sponsored by a major design association. They wanted to know if I'd attend the ceremony. I read it 3 times. Then I laughed, then I cried, then I immediately texted my best friend. Apparently my little art degree just got me nominated for something real. The ceremony was in a hotel ballroom, all dim lights and plastic wine glasses. Our studio bought a table. My boss came, a couple of coworkers, my friend Lily. There was talk of inviting family, but the thought of my parents sitting there judging everyone's outfits made me want to puke, so I didn't mention it. On the night, I sat at the table with clammy hands, listening to category after category. When they got to mine, emerging brand designer, my heart tried to exit through my throat. They read 3 names. Mine was last. Somehow, mine was also the one that followed the phrase, and the winner is... Everything after that was a blur. I remember walking up on stage feeling like my legs weren't attached properly. Flashbulbs. A cheap trophy that felt like it weighed 1,000 kilos. Someone shaking my hand and saying, "Your concept was really fresh." That weekend, the association posted winners on their social media. They tagged me. My boss reposted it. Lily reposted it. A client reposted it. You can guess who else saw it. My mother, who has every social media app muted except Facebook and Instagram for recipes, called me the next morning. "Hannah." No hello, just my name, tight and fast. "Why did I have to see on the internet that you won some big prize?" I braced myself. "Good morning to you too." She huffed. "Don't be cheeky. Your aunt sent it to me." "Look how amazing your daughter is," she said. I had to pretend I already knew. Do you know how embarrassing that is? Something in me snapped. "Mom, do you know what was embarrassing? Having my major withdrawn, without my consent. Being told my degree was a waste. Having my partners in group projects ask why my parents called them, wondering if I was in trouble. You were never interested in my design stuff unless it was to tell me it was a phase." Silence. I could hear her breathing. Then, quietly, "I didn't know it was that serious." "It was my life," I said. "Of course it was serious." She cleared her throat. "Your father is proud," she said, in that way she uses when she doesn't know how to say "I'm proud" without choking on it. "He doesn't say it, but he is." He showed the picture to Uncle Kareem. "That's nice," I said, trying not to let that tiny, pathetic child inside me glow too brightly at the idea of my dad showing off my award. "He wants you to bring the trophy on Sunday," she added, "so we can see it." I almost said no on principle, but curiosity and that stupid, glowing child won. On Sunday I went. I walked in holding the cheap glass thing like it was made of spun sugar. Dad picked it up, turned it over in his hands, and nodded once. "It's heavy," he said, like he couldn't think of any other compliment. "It's real," I replied. He grunted.
"So,
"This is for your branding stuff."
yes."
"For my degree." He put the trophy down and looked at me properly for the first time in a long time.
"You worked hard," he said.
"I see that now." It wasn't an apology. It was something adjacent. I took it. Fast forward 6 months. Work was busy. I'd been promoted to mid-level, which meant more responsibility and slightly less broke girl panic. I'd also started seeing someone, Eli, a developer I'd met on a cross-functional project. He was kind in that steady, quiet way my life desperately needed. He thought my family drama was intense, but didn't try to fix it. He just held my hand when I shook after difficult phone calls. My parents knew vaguely that there was a boy, but not specifics. I wasn't ready to hand them the nuclear codes to my romantic life yet. Then one evening, Mum called me sounding strangely soft. "Hannah, we're having a dinner," she said. "Just family small. Your cousin from interstate is visiting. We want you to bring your friend." I nearly dropped my mug. "My friend? Your boyfriend," she said, sounding like the word physically hurt her. "If he is serious, he should come properly." I told Eli everything. The forged form, the arranged marriage attempt, the big move-out scene. He listened, then said, "I'll come if you want me there. If you don't, I won't take it personally." I wanted him there. I also wanted to throw up. We went. Dinner was awkward, as predicted. My parents oscillated between ignoring him and interrogating him about his job, family, religion, plans. They were less hostile than I'd braced for, more curious judgy. Progress, I guess. At one point, when Eli went to help Mum in the kitchen, Dad leaned toward me and said, "He's fine. Better than the doctor your aunt suggested." I almost choked on my water. That's a low bar, but I'll take it. Over the next few months, the tone from my parents shifted from, "You are ruining your life," to, "We don't understand your choices, but we can't deny they're working." They still said things that made my shoulders tense. Little digs about when you settle down properly, or when are you going to buy a house instead of wasting money on rent. But they weren't trying to control the steering wheel anymore. The real turning point came when my younger sister, Maya, called me whispering from the bathroom at home. "I got into art school," she said, voice trembling. "And Mum and Dad are going to lose their minds." It was like déjà vu. Maya is 3 years younger than me, quieter on the surface, but with a stubborn core I recognized. She'd always been the good one, the mediator. She also secretly wrote poetry and painted in watercolors on the side of her homework sheets. She sent me pictures of her acceptance email. My chest tightened. "What do you want?" I asked her. "Not what they want. You." She didn't hesitate. "I want to go." I exhaled slowly. "Okay, then you need a plan." Over the next few weeks, we did with her what I'd wished someone had done with me. We looked at scholarships, part-time jobs near campus, share houses. I helped her draft an actual budget. She opened her own bank account before telling our parents anything. When she finally sat them down, it went about as badly as expected. Dad ranted about starving artists. Mum cried about after all we sacrificed. They dangled money, guilt, silent treatment. Maya shook but didn't fold. At one point, I drove over and sat beside her while she said, "I'm going whether you approve or not. I would love your blessing, but I'm going anyway." Dad looked between us, his 2 daughters, one already gone, one on the verge. He looked so much older than the man who'd blocked the door with my suitcase in hand. "I don't want to lose another daughter," he muttered. "You didn't lose me," I said quietly. "You pushed me out because you wouldn't let me be a person. Don't do that to her." Mum wiped her eyes. "We were afraid," she whispered. "We didn't understand your world. We only know what kept us safe." "I know," I said. "And I know you meant well. But good intentions don't erase the harm. You can choose differently this time." They didn't magically become enlightened overnight. But they did, eventually let Maya go without disowning her. They grumbled, they predicted doom, but they didn't forge any forms. They didn't call supervisors behind her back. They helped her move, even Dad carrying boxes up the stairs with muttered curses about narrow hallways. Later, when it was just me and him at the car, he said, "You were right to leave." I blinked.
What?
"If you had stayed," he said, avoiding my eyes, "we would still think we know everything. Maybe we needed to see you survive on your own to understand." "Survive," I echoed, amused and sad all at once.
I'm not just surviving, Dad.
"I'm happy," he grunted. "Happy," he repeated, like he was testing the word. "That is good." It's not a fairy tale ending.
My parents are still themselves.
They still say things that make me roll my eyes. They still sometimes slip into old habits of trying to pressure or guilt me. But now I have a life that doesn't depend on their approval. I have a partner who is my back, a job I genuinely enjoy, a little balcony with dying plants that I murder slowly, but lovingly. When my parents try to push too hard, I can say, no, and know that the worst-case scenario is not losing everything because I've already built something of my own. When they do show up in genuine ways, asking about my projects without mocking them, telling relatives about my work without apologizing for it, I can actually let that in just a little. Not because I need it, but because it's a bonus. So yes, when my parents tried to control my life, I packed my bags and created my own future. And the wildest part is that in doing so, I accidentally helped loosen the grip they had on my sister's future too. I would do it again, terrified, shaking hands and all. All right, final verdict round. Opie, Hannah, is the kind of protagonist who doesn't need a Hollywood moment to be heroic. Her strength is in the boring, unglamorous decisions. Opening a secret bank account, finishing her degree while working, signing a lease on a tiny room that smells like damp freedom. She's not running off to Bali with nothing but a backpack and vibes. She's doing spreadsheets at 2 a.m. so she can afford rent. That's the kind of rebellion that actually changes a life. Her biggest win isn't the award or the promotion. It's the internal shift from, "I'm a disappointment," to, "I am allowed to build something that fits me." The parents are infuriating, but painfully real. They embody that blend of trauma, fear, and love that so many first-gen kids know too well. They did horrifying stuff, let's not sugarcoat it. Forging a withdrawal form is absolutely not okay. Tracking, guilt-tripping, arranging husbands like they're part of a retirement plan, all deeply controlling. And yet, the story doesn't flatten them into villains. We see the cracks, the fear of losing kids to a culture they don't fully understand, the panic that all their sacrifice will be wasted if their children choose paths they can't brag about back home. That doesn't excuse them, but it contextualizes them. Their slow, clumsy attempts at change. Dad's awkward pride over the trophy, Mom inviting the boyfriend, their decision to not sabotage Maya, actually feel earned. They're not good parents by default, but they're capable of growth when faced with undeniable evidence that their methods hurt the people they love. Maya quietly steals a chunk of the spotlight in the update. She shows how cycles either repeat or break. Without Hannah going first, taking the nuclear blast version of pushing back, Maya probably never would have had the courage or roadmap to say, "I'm going whether you approve or not." Her arc proves that one person choosing themselves can ripple outward in ways you don't predict. Eli is the healthy partner cameo I'm always grateful for in these stories. He's not a savior, he's an anchor. He listens, supports, shows up at the awkward dinner, but doesn't try to white knight his way through deeply cultural issues he doesn't fully grasp. That's exactly what Opie needed. Not someone to fix her family, but someone who doesn't make her feel crazy for wanting better. Overall, this story isn't about perfect reconciliation or scorched earth no contact. It lives in the messy middle, where boundaries are firm, love is complicated, and healing looks like building a life that does not require anyone's permission. The revenge isn't a dramatic speech at a reunion. It's Hannah's quiet, continued existence as a happy, self-directed adult. Proof that her parents' worst fears were wrong and her own instincts were right.